happy to kick it off. However direction you want to start.
Yeah, no, I love to start these things out. I feel like, since we're talking to the persons in the project, right, to get to know you guys a little bit. So if you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and kind of explaining a little bit more about your background, what you bring to the project, and kind of how you got started in Web3 is a great way I like to start these.
Sure thing. Yeah, I guess I'll start. So my name is Michael, Autonomous OX on Twitter. I'm working business development at AI Arena. So my background is in finance, specifically asset management and trading. Most of our backgrounds are so ways as well. That's actually where we first met, worked together in finance, and eventually we both followed a similar path in the sense that we quit our finance jobs in order to pursue Web3. I think Web3 went through a lot of it's very early on, and will go through a lot of changes, and we think it's inevitable how revolutionary both AI and Web3 are. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit still, and got acquainted with this incredible idea, and it just became a no-brainer to work on something so cool and fascinating. So that's my story.
Hey guys, my name is Wei. As Michael mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders on the project, also the chief operating officer of the company that's building AI Arena. It's called Arena X Labs. My background, as Michael mentioned, is in traditional finance. I've been in the asset management industry prior to Web3 for over a decade. Most recently was leading a large liquid strategies program at a Canadian fund. And then came to kind of co-found this project alongside two other co-founders. The initial ideas around AI Arena were conceived around late 2020. And we've been building the project since basically like Q1 or Q2 of 2021. We raised capital from Paradigm and Framework late last year. And have been building ever since. So it's been a crazy ride so far. And happy to get into the discussion about the project specifically.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, gents. Love to hear that background specifically. So, my next question is can you give us a quick high level overview of what exactly AI Arena is, and maybe what it's aiming to be in this space, whether it's something new, something we've seen before, like what exactly are you guys trying to accomplish with AI Arena?
Yeah, for sure. So we're a game, right? And we are trying to carve out a new niche, a new genre in gaming, AI gaming specifically, which we believe doesn't exist, is underdeveloped, and can provide new experiences to players. So the game AI Arena itself, it's a player versus player platform fighting game, visually similar to Super Smash Bros. And that's where the difference ends. Being that each character is actually intelligent, so you can actually train them, and they're NFTs. So we've been able to embed AI models into NFTs because the original sort of vision that sparked all this is the realization that NFTs are just containers that can store anything of value, really. And so the first wave and the first bull run saw it mainly applied to PFP, social communities, and art. And while it's really valuable, I think there's definitely a space to embed AI models into this technology because, again, it's just a container that can hold anything of value. And we're really turning the NFT into a productive asset. And, once I explain the game loop, it'll really make sense. So, you have this AI, right? And out of the box, it doesn't know anything. It doesn't know how to fight. And it trains by watching you. Right, so there's this imitation learning aspect in AI where the bot observes your tendencies, right, and it observes sort of the basics of how you conduct yourself in a fight to pick up on basic skills, right? So there's an element of playing the game and the AI learns from you and picks up from you, how to fight. So that's one aspect of the imitation learning. Then we go into what's called the inspector, right? The AI inspector, in abstract form, it's like going inside the brain of the AI and seeing exactly what it's learned and how it would react to certain situations. So to contextualize this, I like using this example. Pretend there's an AI that's observing Messi, right? And Messi's playing soccer, and the AI learns, picks up on Messi's tendencies. So the faster Messi's feet are, or his combinations, right? It's absorbing those sort of basic skills. That's the first aspect of the imitation learning. Then you go inside the AI's brain, or Messi's brain, right? And you see, how does it react in certain situations, right? So you can put Messi in certain points of the field, right? If the AI is at the top of the 18-yard box on its left foot, shoot. Or if it's on the right foot, because that's his weak foot, pass. So that's a soccer example, but in a fighting example, right? In a platform fighting stage, right? You could apply that sort of similar logic, right? So how does the AI behave in certain situations? And in comes the element of strategy, right? In the end, you have an AI or robot that should be able to generalize fights very well, right? Completely tuned to your preferences and what you think is the optimal strategy. There's a reason it's extremely exciting. This is not just something that, the technology is there, right? And it's extremely hard to, take neural nets and advanced artificial intelligence and sort of abstract it into gameplay, right? So the technology is there, but we're not just releasing this and saying, I hope people like it. We've done, whether from alpha tests or our beta tests now, this is an extremely addicting game. And we have a saying called the dopamine hits different. And what we mean by that is that, games are all about game loop rushes, right? And we really believe we provide at least 4 unique and distinctive core rushes, right? That is very unique and unlike in any other game. So the first aspect of it, right? The actual experience of training an AI. When you first get it, doesn't know anything, and then it sort of responds to your inputs. You develop such almost like an affinity to this character, right? We have people in our beta test that didn't want to let go of their model because they almost grew attached to it, right? It's almost like the feeling of raising this child and having, a say in their development and progress, right? And it's very intense to then eventually watch them fight. But so there's almost like that, I like to say, almost like the same things that got us addicted to Tamagotchis, right? It's almost like this character that you're taking care of and is yours. So there's one aspect of that. It's on chain and it's your identity. Then there's the aspect of playing the game. The game is extremely satisfying to play, whether it's you fighting to play just to train, whether it's fighting against your AI to simulate how good it's become. Like, if you like playing games, you're going to be satisfied, which is a huge criticism of simulation games, which are fun. Let's say Football Manager, they're extremely fun, but then at a certain point, the player yearns for like another experience where they're actually engaged in the gameplay. This game loop has you covered because to train your AI, you have to play. And that's 2. That's a second game loop rush. The third one, there's an element of strategy. We all love, or most of us love, strategy games. And that's where the AI inspector comes in, where you can really, develop a policy or a strategy for how your fighter conducts himself on the platform. And so that aspect is very rewarding, right? And then you have the simulation. So when all is said and done and you have your trained AI, you put them in an evergreen competition, right? Which is a global leaderboard, right? Where based on ELO scores, you get matched up against fighters with similar ELO scores, and it fights on its own, right? And that is extremely intense. We've gotten even more recognition that in our beta test of players that, were even struggling to make their AIs. And then as soon as, they started seeing its potential and how it was getting better and better. It was extremely intense to just see if what they were teaching it worked, right? And then when it does, that's extremely gratifying. And and that's sort of the classic simulation game loop or rush or dopamine hit that you get from video games. So that's 4, right? So that's 4. Overlay a financial incentive on top, right? Where your players are, you stake your fighter on a leaderboard if you believe in them, and the you earn based off your skill. Now we can get into the economy. We definitely do not, we're not talking about this sort of Web 3 1.0 economies where it's just completely subsidized by inflation. We're happy to get into the economy later, but that's where the earning element comes in, and we believe it's very unique. There's some games that really just make their entire experience predicated off one of these game loops, and we're elegantly combining all 4 in a way that's not forced and sort of comes together naturally, right? And that's why we believe that's why this game is extremely unique, and and there's been so much excitement around it so far. So that's sort of the high level. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I love that. And high level, but extensive as well. So I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah.
So could you maybe, and I hate to peg your project into certain holds, but then sorry, that was a terrible sounding. Anyway, I hate to blanket your game and compare it to another game, but would you mind kind of explaining a little bit more about the gameplay? Like what kind of gameplay are we looking at? Can you maybe compare it to maybe other games that we've seen before?
Yeah. Wait, I don't know if you have any specific I'll just say I don't think there's anything like this out there at all in terms of experience. The closest would be Super Smash Bros. Because it's a platform fighting game. But no, wait.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think the holistic game loop is very unique. If you were to dissect it and fragment it into these component parts, there are like to Michael's point, there's kind of like 3 macro components to the core training loop. So there's the data collection side. That part feels more like Super Smash, where you are controlling a character and the human is actually doing the controlling. What's really happening there is, as we described, like the first starting point is you have to demonstrate the skills to the AI. So it feels more like you're playing Smash. However, the distinction here is you're playing it in a way where you're teaching AI skills. You're not playing it in a way where you're in a platform fighting game. You're playing as if you are the person who's controlling the character. So the way that you play in the data collection is different than how you would play in Smash. You're doing it in a way where you're deliberately trying to teach skills to the AI. So that part I would say is kind of like Smash. Then you get into the configuration and inspection. That part, the closest thing would be like a manager type game, like a football manager type game, where you have a lot of different parameters that you can tune. And the way that you tune the parameters in the configuration section of the game impacts how your AI actually learns. So not only is it learning from just replicating your actions, you're also able to contextualize those actions in the configuration panel so that the different parameters that you're using actually leads to a different training outcome. There's a lot of iteration there between the data collection and the configuration. And the combination of those two things is really what allows you to maximize and make your training very, very effective for your AI. And that's really where the skill shines through. And then the inspector itself, I guess the closest thing you can say is something like maybe like Super Mario Maker or something like that, where it's almost like because you're able to see inside the brain of the AI, you're able to like reconfigure all of the different situations that the AI can be in, and then see if you put the AI in those situations, what would it do? So visually, from a UI perspective, it kind of feels like something like Mario Maker, but the intention of that module is really give the human a feedback mechanism to understand what has the AI learned, what has it learned as a function of the most recent round of training, is it what I wanted it to learn, and also what are still the outstanding areas or the weaknesses of the AI that I need to further improve on in future rounds of training. So, and then there's the auto battle component in the competition, which is basically like it when you watch it, it just looks like a kind of a platform fighting game like Smash, but inherently you know that what you're watching isn't human actually playing the game. It's someone trained in AI, and now it's like two AIs fighting each other. So yeah, put all of that together and you have AI Arena.
That's fascinating. So it's you know, on one side it's yes, it's fun to play this game. It was fun to actually like battle, but on the other hand, I'm not get my AI to be powerful, so it can kind of battle on its own. So the better I am at the game, the better my AI gets. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can think about, in the abstract sense, the AI is a reflection of you, and you've basically translated your skills systematically into the AI. So then when the AI fights, it is really it's like its soul is a representation of who you are as a human player, but it's now kind of battling autonomously against other AIs that other people have trained. So there's a skill transfer between the human into the AI, and it's a very unique experience. It's super intense, and this is why Michael was mentioning the kind of the slogan that we had, which is like the dopamine hits different. Like when you are in a situation when you're watching your AI and your AI is doing all the things that you've taught it, and it's through this like very kind of challenging process of getting your AI to perform that way. It's such a rewarding experience, and it's a rush like no other.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of how things live on. I think back in the 64 days. I remember reading something on the internet, like Reddit or something, where a kid used to play Mario Kart with their dad, and they fired up their old Mario Kart game, and their dad's ghost mode trial was still on there, so he would never beat it because then he would get rid of his dad's data, right? And he would would play it every once in a while to race with his dad. So in my head, I'm thinking like you're essentially creating like that kind of ability with a fighting game in my head. And I know that that's kind of a weird tangent to go off of, but that's really neat.
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities there. Yeah, I think you're thinking about it in the right way.
Excellent. I always love giving the medal of thinking about it in the right way. That's an achievement of mine that I try to go forward with. Just kidding. So we're talking about Web3. We're talking about this AI game. And obviously, in this world, we think of things in terms of NFTs. So what exactly is the NFT here? Is it the character? Is it the AI? What are we looking at in terms of, the NFT itself?
Yeah. So basically, NFT is a few components. It obviously has this visual representation of it. So in a traditional sense, there's like a PFP, a component to it. There's an art component to it, which is the visual representation of your character. And then inside, quote unquote, inside the NFT is an actual artificial intelligence model. And that model is stored on IPFS with a hash of the parameters actually stored on chain. So you can think about it as let's say if this AI is a brain, the actual physical brain is stored on IPFS, and then the memory structure of the brain is stored on blockchain. And as you train this AI or this AI NFT, you can intermittently update its memory structure, because as a function of it learning new skills, you can basically checkpoint its memory and record this new parameter set, which represents a new memory structure on the blockchain, so that it's immutable. And so you're able to basically prove that your AI has effectively achieved a new performance capability and all of that is like recorded on the blockchain, and all of this is like encapsulated in your NFT. So when you potentially sell or buy this NFT on the secondary market from someone else, you're kind of basically getting that entire package, which is the visual aspect of it, and also the learned behavior and the memory structure of that NFT, all the way up to its current level of performance, basically.
Right on. Okay. So I heard the other day that someone compared, they said, with the emergence of AI and AI this year, we have AI, quote unquote, artists and AI, all those different kinds of AI being used. They said AI is a buzzword, much like the blockchain was a few years ago, where it's got use cases and can be really neat, but is mostly used for like ridiculous, silly things that don't necessarily have any progress to things. So can you kind of maybe debunk that for us? And one, and then two, give us like an example of where this can go in terms of gaming and things like that. Like, obviously this is a great project in itself, and I'm excited to see this game, but where do you see this game allowing other games, or maybe games that you guys will develop in the future, to go from here?
Yeah, so I think at a high level, I would agree with the assessment that AI is very much a buzzword in Web3. And to be honest, like AI as a theme, it right now is having its moment again in the world, and Web3 particularly. But if you think back, like there were previous waves of AI capturing the mainstream, imagination as well, and being from financial services. Back in 2016 or 17, there was the initial, not the initial, but there was a wave of like AI awareness at that point. And a lot of the financial services companies out there started to rebrand themselves as AI-enabled funds or AI this, AI that. And more or less, it was used as a buzzword because if you pulled back the curtains and saw what's actually happening, like it was really not sophisticated at all. So I think people are going to continue to be very, I guess, like fortuitous or liberal in the way that they're marketing themselves as like AI-enabled X, in this case, gaming. So we would say, by and large, beware of that, because it's just AI is going to have its moment in the sun again, and everyone's going to be very opportunistic about it. I think in terms of how we're applying AI, unequivocally, we have probably the most differentiated tech stack. We had to build this entire game engine from scratch because of what what the AI capabilities have to enable. So there's no like game engine that allows us to build the capabilities that we have set out to create here out of the box. We couldn't use something like Unity or Unreal Engine because they don't provide those capabilities for us. We coded every single line of code from scratch. So that started from the game engine to the character design to how the AI is actually integrated into the core gaming experience. We have been very thoughtful about that. The one thing that I want to highlight here is there needs to be an awareness that just because you're adding AI to a game doesn't make it fun. And we spent an incredible amount of time trying to figure out what is actually an interesting game loop that still preserves the focal point of any game, which is the human experience, while integrating AI into that loop. And this is how we ultimately came up to where we are with AI Arena. Is we've tried to iterate on different approaches to ensure that at the end of the day, it's still the human experience that's the focal point, despite the fact that there's a very kind of substantive AI kind of tech that's enabling this overall experience. So that's the second point. I think what does the future entail in terms of gaming and AI? The very low hanging fruit is AI is going to make game development much, much more efficient, faster, and lower cost. There's a lot of different tech plays out there that's going to enable and make all of the different aspects of game dev more efficient, from character design to kind of testing core game loops. Very much the same arc that happened on perhaps, let's say, let's take cameras and photography as an example. Like with the advent of iPhones and social media platforms like Instagram, it basically leveled the playing field in terms of the average person can create very good photography for a fraction of the cost and in a very efficient way. I think that whole technological arc is coming for gaming as a function of AI. I think what we have created in terms of a tech stack is scalable horizontally into different types of games. So obviously, initially with AI Arena, it's a fighting primitive game, but this can be applied in many different contexts. Racing game, other types of sports games. In fact, any kind of game where there's like almost an immediate type of like feedback loop that can allow the AI to learn through iteration is something that we can leverage this type of tech and apply to that. Our intention is not to, very quickly, roll out different types of games using the tech. Our focus initially is to make sure that AI Arena as the initial title is a big success, to prove the extent of where this tech can take gaming in the way that we've designed it. And then from there, we can use that as a launching point for many other types of games later on.
Thank you for that. Okay. So, and this will be the last question down this path. I do want to get back to the project itself, but the future in Ural's perspective on things matters a lot because you guys are, in the AI space. So what would you say to someone who's like, the future of AI to help, perfect code and to help perfect, bug catching and debugging of software and products and games especially kind of ruins an aspect of coding and creating something. There's like an art to it, so to speak. So the imperfections, like some of my favorite parts of some of the games that I've played in the past are exploits and bugs, right? That we've learned to internalize and to create and to, exploit and have fun with. What would you say against that? Saying like, that there isn't necessarily art to imperfection in coding and in gaming like that.
Yeah, I think as it relates to our game, it really isn't about perfection. And in fact, if you engage in the core game loop, you would understand that in this particular game, the beauty is in the struggle, in the sense that like there is no prescribed way of how to play this game. And in fact, to get your AI to learn effectively is not easy. And there's an incredible amount of depth to creativity, experimentation, and a lot of times it's like you discover insights by accident. Very much in the similar spirit of what you're saying here, which is the going through the process of learning how to code and being able to kind of create is necessitated by making mistakes and figuring out sometimes it's like exploits and loopholes, etc. But it's that kind of iteration and exploratory process that gets you there, and that process in and of itself is challenging, but is also why it's really rewarding. And I think that whole arc is preserved in this game. So AI in our game doesn't make it refined or perfect in that sense. It actually is what creates the challenge, which is why I think it's super interesting and novel. But to answer the question more from like an abstract perspective, I think my personal view is like, just because the technology allows us to do what we historically have done in a much more refined, efficient, or quote unquote perfect way, doesn't mean that the journey of like continued progress or innovation stops. It just means that we have the ability to step to a new level or vantage point to continue to iterate and push the envelope of innovation forward. And we've unlocked a new level in which we now have to do the same process yet again. We effectively like leveled up as a species. So the challenges start to change. they morph into something else, but it doesn't stop. And I don't think there's necessarily that perfection, but it's like it is a pivot in terms of the skill set that was useful for the prior generation of problem solving may now be rendered a bit obsolete or I don't know, maybe irrelevant because the AI can do it so well, but it unlocks a new problem solving domain that we now have to step into where it's still going to require a similar level of like trial and error, experimentation, finding exploits and loopholes. And it's just incumbent on people to go forth and explore that new domain. And I think just the story kind of repeats, but we're constantly kind of progressing. That's my view. I don't know, Michael, if you have anything that you want to add from your perspective.
Not really. No, I think that was great. I think the point you made on, I think humanity always just advances and disintermediates certain previous functions. And like you said, it allows us to approach new problems from a new vantage point, right? So, like if you can imagine probably a couple hundred years ago, if you wanted to get something done, like just communicating might have been a massive challenge or part of the execution. And now we've, disintermediated that, made it instant. So, it's allowed us to focus on other things and new challenges. So I welcome that, to the extent that the AI can code decently. I think it'll just allow us to focus on new things, like Wei said, from a new vantage point.
Hell yeah. No, I completely agree with both of you. Sorry, I just like to, when I speak to someone that knows something about particular topics, I like to just to ask some hypotheticals, some higher level questions before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes, or rather while we're in the meat and potatoes of it. So thanks, gentlemen, for that. So let's get on with, I don't know, the logistics of your all's project and the upcoming dates and things like that. So when we look into Mint, what's Mint look like? Give us some of that information.
Yeah, so I think our overall approach to minting is going to be pretty different than what people are used to. There are some aspects that I can share, and there are other things that I don't want to share just yet. Not because that they're not prepared. They are prepared and very deliberately thought through, but it's somewhat novel, so I don't want to give it all away. So I just hope have people kind of keep locked in terms of what we're doing. Just meet us when we get there. But the things that I can share about the Mint is that the supply of the project in terms of NFTs are going to be quite limited. We don't know exactly where we're going to end up, but we are pretty high conviction that it's going to be less than 1,000 NFTs at launch. And I think the target that we're working towards is something like 750. So it's a kind of a low supply NFT collection. And it's really not an NFT collection. It's really like these core assets that you can use to play in this NFT version of the game. And the reason why the supply is pretty scarce is because we really think about these NFTs as almost like many franchise rights for the professional tier of the competition. And the NFT version of this game is intended over time to be professional level players. And by virtue of having these NFT, not only does it give you the AI that you're able to train, but it's also kind of a claim on the overall kind of economics of the broader ecosystem. And the primary benefactors of that are the NFT holders, who are the very high skilled players. So what we're trying to do is kind of mimic a traditional sports type of business model where the lion's share of the economics accrue to the really highly skilled players. And those are the ones who are really earning in the economy. And the NFT version of the game over time is designed to create the most compelling content that can onboard more and more people into the game who are experiencing it and playing it more from a casual perspective. So they're not the ultra competitive players, but they're playing it for the enjoyment of the game, to compete with friends on a more friendly level. And through that apparatus of like onboarding this mass audience through this free-to-play version of the game, that allows us to start monetizing the free-to-play version base through the traditional means of things like battle passes, microtransactions, skins, et cetera, et cetera. So that becomes kind of the monetization earning engine of the game, and the value that's like earned into the system, a lot of it gets redispersed to the top ranking players who are kind of actually competing at the NFT level. So as a design decision, the NFT supply is going to be limited. And at launch, when we go live, like I said, is probably going to be in that 750 range. And then there's going to be some moderate inflation over the long term, probably single digit inflation over time, where it's the release of new NFTs that allows the kind of the professional layer of players to scale a little bit as the broader free-to-play ecosystem is scaling at a much faster rate. So yeah, that's kind of on the supply side. In terms of the mint mechanics, we're not going to do like a whitelist system. There's not going to be an over allocation of NFTs. It's 1-for-1. So if you earn a mintless spot, you will mint an NFT, and the mint is free. So there's not going to be any costs. We're not going to charge you anything for the NFTs. And the reason why that's the case is it's going to be pretty difficult to earn into one of our NFTs. Because the primary channel that you can get access to this is to compete in one of our beta competitions. And if you qualify for one of our betas, you have to come in, play the game. It's a 1 week long competition, and then you have to finish in the top 50 to actually earn your mintless spot. And if you do that, then you're guaranteed an NFT. And the reason we do this is we want to use the game as a filtering mechanism to ensure that the people who have earned the NFTs have demonstrated skill in playing our game. And because ultimately what we want is like a very strong player base coming right out of the gates after mint that are able to compete at a very high level to create the compelling content. Because that's really ultimately what's going to allow us to drive adoption from the free-to-play side, because people are captivated by the content. They're aspiring to these superstar players and wanting to emulate their success. So all of that is predicated on us being very thoughtful about how we allocate our initial NFT supply. So those are some of the details that I can share in terms of how that all works.
Understood. Got it. Okay. Well, the next question before we pivot into guest questions is, tell us a little bit more about your all's backing. So I know you guys are currently backed by Paradigm, and then I can't remember Framework Ventures. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit more about that partnership, how it kind of came to be, and kind of what that'll help you guys do with this project?
Sure. So yeah, the background is we raised our seed round with Paradigm and Framework back in October 2021. So this was midst of the bull market run. We came into the space, with a very novel product, and quite frankly, like most VCs that we talk to, really love the concept and the idea. A lot of them couldn't underwrite the AI risk because they just didn't understand AI. And this is really kind of speaking to the strength of Paradigm and Framework. They were kind of the VCs that came to the table that were able to actually underwrite what was happening on the AI side. And yeah, so that's kind of the starting point of the partnership. We wanted to have high impact investors and work with people that we trusted and we thought can really add value to the project. So we were a little bit different than perhaps what was happening a lot during the bull market, which was like party rounds and everyone's just collecting logos, so to speak. We did the exact opposite. We kept it to 2 investors in our seed round. Paradigm was like the largest check by far in that round, and just had a focus. And so far, the working relationship has been great with both groups. We work very intimately with them. They, offer support from a whole different range of perspectives. And and it's been been a great partnership, and I think we are still very much a proponent of focusing on the type of investors that you bring into the table that you really think can add value. And I think less is more a lot of times when it comes to syndicate construction.
Excellent. Awesome. No, I love to hear that. And kudos to you guys. Congrats to you guys on that kind of partnership. So I'll go ahead and open it up to the crowd. We do have someone who's requested to speak. Before I go ahead and bring someone up, I want to be clear on the kinds of questions that we're taking right now. We're asking questions about the project, not collaborations or, hey, are you guys doing this collaboration or this collaboration? Also, we're not shilling any projects, anything like that. You can hit these guys up in their DMs if you'd like, but we're not trying to align there. Just ask questions specifically about this project. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and bring up Wyams real fast to ask the question. And feel free, anyone else that is out in the crowd wanting to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get you up here. Otherwise, I got to end on and we can finish up. What's going on, Wyams? What do you got?
Yeah, thank you for bringing me up to the stage. And I appreciate all that the AI arena has been trying to do, creating a total different thing in this space. And I've been part of this very project, following it up, trying to get a lot of experience, gain a lot of more knowledge about all they have in stock. I got a question regarding to having to deal with the Web2 gaming structure. Like currently, there have been a kind of the Web2 guys, the gaming industry in Web2 has not been able to have a kind of a deal with some of the gaming projects in Web3 for the fact that it could be that the technology is not that there and innovation as well. So when it comes to this, what the AI arena is trying to build is so innovative and it's total new thing in the space. So my question is this: do the AI think that they're up to the standard where most projects in Web2 could actually come in terms with them regarding to the fact that they got something great and they are building a total new thing? So that is my question. I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Let me try to rephrase it. So is the core question, how do we think we're able to compete against Web2 games or onboard Web2 players? Or am I getting that right?
Of course, yeah. Because most Web2 games just feel that Web3, most games in Web3 is so substandard and do not have the technology needed. So I'm just trying to say, being that what you are trying to do right now is to do a different thing, new thing, and that has given, it's giving a new face to the Web3 games. So Are you up to that technology, to that innovation based on what you are building right now?
Yeah, so I think the advantage that we have and the uniqueness of what we have actually translates quite well, irrespective of whether it's Web 2 or Web 3. Quite frankly, there's nothing like us on either side. There really isn't a comparable in Web 3 in terms of the overall game experience, nor is there one in Web 2. So we see that as an opportunity. I think Web 3 as a starting point for us to capture a like an engaged and skilled player base on the NFT version of the competition is a strategic decision that we're making. And then over time, as we all know, Web3 gaming in terms of the audience and actual players today is very, very small. So the growth area has to be penetrating the Web2 market. And we think we have a product that's well positioned for that as well. So I think the uniqueness of what we're bringing to the table actually creates an advantage for us to attract audiences both in Web3 and Web2. And in fact, what we find right now is we've been approached by a lot of many like Web2, like very serious gamers, content creators, streamers, who are kind of semi-pro to pro level esports gaming players who are very interested in AI Arena because number one, they want to be exposed to this very novel game experience and they're very intrigued by it. And some of them tell us that they're kind of quite tired of all of these different games coming out because at its core, it's a replication carbon copy of something else that's already been done. So they're very eager to test out this new game primitive that we created. And number two is for the competition aspect of it. They want something aggressively competitive so that they can really demonstrate their skills. And I think we bring that to the table better than most other Web3 projects out there. If we can create that highly motivated and competitive version of the game in the NFTs, in the NFT version of the game, then I think that gets us into to be a very good position to attract Web2 players who are now trying to kind of aspire to and emulate the success that these kind of pro players have exhibited in the Web3 NFT version of the game. I hope that answered the question. I'm not sure if he maybe cut out there. So.
Yeah, all good. I think that answers the question perfectly from my perspective. So thank you for that. It doesn't look like there's any other questions, so I'd like to kind of save the end here to give you guys kind of two ways, and you could take both if you'd like. One, maybe kind of brush up on something that maybe we haven't discussed about the game, or something maybe exciting about the game that you guys want to reemphasize, and then two, kind of something to close out on, something to kind of remind us of the conversation that we've had and why we should be really excited to mint AI Arena and be a participant in the process. So I'll leave those with you guys.
Yeah, maybe I'll start, and Michael, definitely feel free to jump in. I'm sure you have ideas as well. I think the focal point of this conversation has been focusing on the game itself, the video game AI Arena. The project AI Arena is actually much, much larger than just the game that we're describing. There's many other layers involved, which we probably don't have time to like cover in depth all these other aspects. But at the highest level, if you take a step back in terms of what we're trying to achieve as a project, it's really about two things. One, it's leveling the playing field in terms of access and having talented people around the world being able to have a platform to showcase themselves. And that was one of the underlying motivations for us to start AI Arena, is because we always felt like talent is distributed around the world, but there's a vast asymmetry in terms of who had opportunities and access to the better opportunities in life when it comes to applying themselves. So AI Arena is designed to create a stage for people from all around the world to showcase their talents, using a game as the mechanism to demonstrate that. And the other aspect of it that's related is the game itself is basically kind of a distillation of the entire AI research process. So as you're playing the game, what you don't realize is you're actually learning about AI in a very intimate way, how AIs work, how it learns, the challenges that are involved in a AI researcher or a machine learning researcher, what they confront on a day-to-day basis. But we've captured all of that and reframed it into a game. So now you're learning through those things and progressing through that arc of progression through a gaming primitive, and it makes it very engaging. And it almost like you're not. It feels like you're just like having fun and trying to push through these problem-solving hurdles. But in the process, what you're actually doing is consuming AI education and getting a stronger and stronger intuition in terms of what AI is and how it works. And that education, we think, is very much paramount to the realities of the modern world. Like AI is going to transform all of our lives. And a critical gap is people actually don't understand what AI is. So in that context, I think there's a lot of dangers in that, because things that we don't understand, we feel threatened by. And the more that we are able to make these things approachable, the more people are actually more willing to explore AI, understands its limits, capabilities, what its promises are, what it's not capable of. And it's really going to give people a new kind of vantage point of where the world is going and how AI is going to integrate with our daily lives, et cetera. And we hope to use gaming as the platform to teach people about that and make it so that it's fun to learn. And it's almost like they're consuming education without consuming it. So the reason I want to put that into the forefront is I just want to contextualize and help people understand that AI Arena is a mission-based project. Gaming is the means for us to deliver on these objectives of like recognizing talent, delivering education in a fun and engaging way. The game actually is not the ends. It's just a mechanism for us to do that. And if we're able to achieve on those core objectives and the missions of what we're trying to do, I think that's going to be that's really what we're all kind of motivated by, is to try to achieve this like vision of the world that we want to see, and demonstrate to the world that you can actually use a game as a delivery mechanism for all of this, which is actually really cool, unique, and exciting. So I think that's something that I want to leave the audience with. If you're curious about how we intend to actually do that, I invite you to kind of follow our project, go into our documentation. We try to unpack all of these ideas in a pretty easy to understand way. And the more that you get to know us, the more I think you'll start to appreciate how all of this is potentially possible. And the real kind of delivery agent that allows us all of this to be possible is the game that we have been discussing for the last hour. So that's kind of what I wanted to leave it on. Michael, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, it's the other reason why also more than just a game. There's AI as a Trojan horse for education, as Wei just described, and it's also the technological aspect, the advancement of the technology itself, right? If we've just described the game, and if you think about it, in order to enable that game, what do we need to do? And it implies we've successfully tokenized AI in a way that the use cases may not be apparent now, but it's building the rails to freely the same reason money derives benefit from being on chain or other valuables, right? We believe AI models are algorithms are valuable intellectual property, but this market just doesn't exist because code has the same double spend problem as money, right? It's in digital form. If I sell you a model, how do you know I didn't just copy it? How do you know I'm not copying it and selling it to somebody else? How do you know it's even mine to begin with? And that can be fixed through on chain, right? Through putting it on chain, and you know, the NFT is just a wrapper to wrap anything of value. And if you fundamentally believe that algorithms are value and they're going to continue to proliferate in more flexible ways, right? This is sort of the, you know, the lubricant in to create that sort of those mechanisms, right? To have it proliferate in our economy without, you know, a company, if they have intellectual property, instead of just doing an M&A on the whole company, you allow them to slice up IP. I'm just throwing out use cases, but that's what the technology really enables, right? And it'll slowly, you know, companies that change the world or have a revolutionary technology that's broad-based. It never starts off broad-based. It really catches fire in a niche corner, right? I'll admit this is an overly simplistic example, but you know, it's almost like Amazon. It didn't start off to be an everything e-commerce store. It started off with books, but then the logistics of books. But books are really easy to package, and they're usually the same size. And they created the infrastructure and the rails for e-commerce, and then it slowly expanded from books to selling everything else, right? And you know, we're starting with the main use case of gaming, but I think people should appreciate we're really creating the rails to really enable AI to proliferate elsewhere, right? And that's the beauty of this technology. Wrapping education into that, and you know, we're super excited with what's being created.
Awesome, gentlemen, and I appreciate you guys going in depth and kind of giving us kind of like the future implications and things. Obviously, your all's project and your all's, you know, the game and everything behind it. I feel like we could probably spend about like 4 or 5 hours sitting here going through it, and still not probably come up on things that we've talked about. But I really do appreciate you all partnering with MHQ and having this AMA with us to discuss kind of the game part of it. And the importance of the AI element as well. So I want to thank you both for being here. Everyone that joined in and listened to this, anyone listening to this later on in the recording, thanks for staying all the way through. But I want to go ahead and end things. And yeah, thanks for everyone for joining, and have a great night.
Thanks for having us. Thanks everyone for joining.